Hello and welcome to a detailed video of how I break down Pepakura designs into foam designs. Let's get into it. Today we're going to cover what to do if you have already a Pepakura design already unfolded for Pepakura and you want to transfer it into foam. I plan on making a different video on how to take .obj or .stl files and making them into foam as well, or into Pepakura, depending on what you want to do. But for today, we're going to focus on if you already have a Pepakura template, but you want to change it into foam for making foam armor. What I have loaded up here right now is just a standard reach forearm from Halo. I've used this model a couple times in the past. I've since moved on to a much higher poly count and much more high detailed file. But for just a basic quick go over of how to change things into foam, we're going to use this because it's very simplistic. It's got a couple things that I can work with, showing you how to get different angles, like where you want to make cuts and everything. So for right now, this is going to serve as a great base for you to start learning. If you haven't really gotten into Pepakura Designer before, or Armorsmith for that matter, that is a new program that's out. I have not had access to it yet. I plan on getting it in the future, maybe making a future video on it, but for now, I primarily use Pepakura 4. Like I was saying, if you have not used this program before, I highly recommend checking out Spacemeat, his tutorials on how to rerun the program. That's where I learned to do it from. I learned it from Spacemeat, so I'm going to link you right here on the screen to a couple of his tutorial videos on how to use this program to get yourself more familiarized with it. But I have a feeling most of you are already here because you know how to use the program and you just want to learn how to do it into foam. So that's what we're going to do. So starting off, I usually go up here first to the settings. We're going to the settings and we're going to go to print and paper settings. This is important because as you're unfolding, you want to make sure that you're unfolding onto the right size paper, you have the right size spacing and everything. If it's up to you if you want to have parts overlap pages, especially for bigger pieces. But in most part, smaller pieces you can cram onto one page, and usually with Pepakura you want to do the same. With foam you want to do the same. Always check, depending on where you are, check local listings. Paper size should be set to letter if you're in the United States of America, or A4 I believe. There's another one I've seen, and I believe that's for Europe. I believe they use that paper. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll probably correct myself in post, but I believe that's where, because I've seen a lot of A4 pop up, and I've never seen an A4 piece of paper, ever. But here in the US, it's letter, because it is a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. For orientation, I usually have it on portrait. You can do landscape if you want, but I usually keep it on portrait, just to, that's what I'm used to. For margin size, it's usually set to default for 0.20. I usually set it for 0.4. Gives me a little bit more working space. A little bit more working space. And it also helps with something down here at the bottom. Get you over to 0.4. There you go. For line weight, I don't usually touch that. For print lines, I go to vector printing just so they always print nice and thick. I've had a couple issues where they printed, like the coloration was just dimmer on paper and it was kind of harder to see. I always have print page number selected just so you can keep track of what page you're on when you're cutting things out. And then this one is also personal preference. I put on the print alignment marks, and what this does is it adds a little square down here, or a little 2-line intersection. So if you do have larger pieces that go across the paper, you can better line up your pieces of paper with it. I usually put a ruler on it, draw a line across, and then I add markings to it, so that way I know. And you're gonna see it's gonna change a little bit because I shrunk the margins in, so now everything doesn't fit on the pages. But on 0.2, those little vector line marks do not, or paper edge marks don't appear very well. They kind of get half cut off. So 0.40, I'm usually set to where they're right there. And this will be, the little dotted line is like the edge of the margin. So this is your workroom. If you go beyond these lines, then everything will be cut off. All right, step number 2 that I normally do before diving into changing things, we're gonna shut off the flaps. Flaps are used for Pepakura mostly because that is where you're folding the paper on the very edges. Right over here, I'll move my mouse cursor over. These are the flaps. So these are like the little tabs you'd bend down, and they got the number markers on them to let you know what gets attached where. So we don't need those for foam, so we're gonna turn those off. Makes everything look nice and clean. And another thing we're gonna do is turn off the show edge ID. I'll zoom in here real quick to show you, but the edge IDs are still on. This is another personal preference. I don't use them because whenever I'm assembling with foam, I always have the model up. So I'm looking at pieces, I don't need to see numbers. I know a couple people will write down the actual numbers, and they're insane because sometimes these numbers can get well over 1,000, and I don't know why they torture themselves so much. But for me, I don't use them. And also while you're working in the program, you'll notice that it kind of, like as you zoom in and out, it bogs down the program. And once you turn them off, things run just a little bit smoother when you're zooming in and out. So I always turn them off, at least while I'm editing. If you want to turn them back on before you go and print out and do your foam cutout and everything in assembly, that's on you. For me, I don't use numbers. I just look at the parts as I'm assembling them. All right, step number 3 that I normally do for checking is I will take and I will click and highlight everything that they already have pulled out, which on a Pepakura model should be every aspect of the piece itself, because for Pepakura, you're gonna use everything. You're gonna use both sides. You're gonna use every tiny little piece to best replicate it. The only time I see that sometimes it's missing pieces is when the model itself has kind of an interior, like something will wrap in and go in, and you won't really see that, especially like on a piece like this with a gauntlet. You're not gonna see additional pieces on the inside because your arm's in the way. So sometimes they'll remove those, but for the most part, it should have every piece of the model. Another good way to check is if you just zoom out by scrolling your mouse wheel, and you just look in this upper left-hand corner, and if it's a giant void and there's nothing in there, then that's all the pieces. This is basically what's referred as the trash zone when you're throwing pieces out, which we'll be doing today, because we're not going to need all these pieces. We might be able to reduce this down to 3 pages instead of 6. Step number 4 is you want to check the scale while you're unfolding. For already made Pepakura models, they're going to be probably close size to what a normal, the average person would be, somewhere within 5'5" to 6'2", and it should be scaled properly to that size. But you're going to want to adjust for your own scale because everybody's built different. So I'm probably just going to leave it as is because I'm not making this for myself. I'm just making this to show you guys how to unfold it. I've already made like 6 of these in the past, so and like I said, I've moved on. So we're just going to leave it as is, but you want to adjust scale now because that's going to change these pieces sizes, which is going to change where it can fit on the paper as you're moving things about and getting things reorganized. All right, and then step number 5, and I do see one on here, is you're going to locate. Most modelers will leave their model by and their unfolded by, just as a, not really a placeholder, but kind of more like, hey, these are the guys that made it. You should give them proper credit, and then that way, if you ever need to go back and somebody's like, hey, who unfolded that, and you'd be like, oh, well, let me just open the file. So you don't want to get rid of this outright, and especially, people put their hard work into it. Don't get rid of it. What I normally do is I just take it. If it's not up here already, I know a lot of people have been doing it recently, but I'll just put it up here in the left-hand corner, right above the first page. So that way that's set in, and that way if you ever need to go back and give credit to them, it's right there. All right, and now we are on to the unfolding process. What you want to check now is if your model is symmetrical or asymmetrical. Symmetrical means that you can literally cut the thing right in half and both sides will be a mirror of each other. I believe this particular gauntlet is that. We got little nub there, little nub there, nub there, nub there, and everything on the back here should be, yep. Like you can actually see a straight line right here, just cutting right through the sucker. And even if I were to click right here, I bet you, yep, there's a line there as well. So this thing can be cut literally right in half, and one side will mirror the other. What you can do with foam, what you can't do with Pepakura, is when you cut these pieces out, when you go to trace them onto the foam, you can just flip the piece of paper over, and that's going to be an exact match, like an exact clone of the other side. You can't do that with Pepakura because you need both sides, you need all the paper. But with foam, as long as it's symmetrical, you can just do one half of it, which saves you a lot of time cutting more paper out. Which, like I said, it's going to save you on paper, it's going to save you on ink, it's going to save you a lot. So with that said, normally I'll try to find bigger pieces like this that, you know, like a central piece, and you don't need to cut these in half. You can if you want, but for the most part, something like this, I won't cut in half. I'll leave as one solid chunk because it is obviously one big chunk. What I do notice here on the back though are these little tabs here. So you'll notice that these are angled downward. Now with foam, you can do it two ways. You can either score the underside, the back edge of the foam, make like a valley in it, and then fold this tab down. Or you can do what I like to do, and if it's like an angle, I wouldn't say 45, maybe 30 degrees or more. And I usually just eyeball it. I'm not looking at exact degrees. But if it's something angled like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it off, and it's going to be its own separate piece. And since these are mirrored, you only really need one. And another thing I like to do is when I'm doing a mirror, I like to choose left or right side of the model. And that way I'm only saving pieces on the left, and I'm discarding pieces on the right. So for today, we're going to do left side. So we're going to keep this one, make sure that's the right one by double clicking it. It'll highlight it on the page. And we're going to get rid of this one. So what you want to do is on this side, the 2D side, right click, go to join, disjoin. We're going to find that line where it's bent, and we're just going to snip it off. One, oop, that is attaching. Let's go back. Control Z is your friend. So mine is set up so red is disjoin, green is join. It's thrown me off because when I had my computer set up originally, it was the other way around. So I'm still trying to get used to that. But red will be disjoin, so we're gonna find the disjoin. That would, like I said, that would be joining it. So we want to find the disjoin. Click. Falls off. We can go back to select and move. And we're just gonna drag him into the void, which is the upper left-hand corner. While you're clicked and holding it, you can actually scroll the mouse wheel up, and that'll zoom out so you can yeet it further into the void. And the void is here on purpose because if you bring it, let's say this way, it extends the pages. If you bring it this way, it extends the pages, you know. So this is where the trash bin is essentially. And these pieces will stay here. They won't print. They will never print unless they're actually on a piece of paper. So this is Rita's garbage space dumpster. All right, back to it. We're going to check the bottom here too, and you'll notice that, yep, these are also at a very hard angle here. So we're keeping left side. So on the right side, we're just going to disjoin that. I'm going to throw it in the trash. But at the same time, we don't want to keep it connected to this main piece because we want these little tabs to be separated. So we're going to disjoin him, disjoin him. And we're just going to move them somewhere onto the page for now, just to keep track of them. When you're doing a lot more cutting and stuff on, I guess, say you had something that has a whole bunch of pieces all over and you don't want them to be all scattered, and the next thing you know, you're getting confused. If that's confusing you too much, the pieces you want to save, and then if you're going to reorganize them later, I usually just throw them onto a blank page and then come back to them as I'm working. But we have quite a bit of space up here, so I'm just going to leave them up here. Now for the middle section, this is where you can get away with foam a lot more than you can with Pepakura, because you'll notice here with Pepakura there's all these little tiny pieces here that make this little valley that goes in to the center here. You got these pieces that are attached here, this is attached there. Small pieces like this will not translate the foam like easy at all. So when you come across little slivers like this, it's best just to eliminate them or add them to an existing piece. In this case, as we rotate the model here, you'll see that this center piece is actually indented. It's further down than this top plane here, so it's actually pushed in. And since we are going to be just pushing it down, what we can do is go ahead and just get rid of this piece altogether. And I'll explain why here in a moment. We're just going to toss them there. And then for this piece here, what we can do also is actually just toss him as well. And this is kind of a personal preference, and there are some techniques that you can do in foam construction. Maybe I'll do a video on foam construction too. Actually, I probably don't need to, because you can go check out Random Ranger and all of his epic building that's been happening. He's been building an entire Halo Reach suit, making tutorials for each piece, everything he puts together. And me and Ranger think very much alike, so he will probably explain the same things in his video. So I'm going to link you here on the screen to all of his stuff. Go check him out. Go support him. He's been doing amazing. But for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to toss that piece out. And then this bottom piece here as well. We don't really need him. But we will, actually, you know what? We might save him just for an example real quick. And this is that middle bar here. That's separate, and that's also sitting, you can tell it's sitting just above this, and it's just above this. So we'll bring him back in here for a moment. So why we're doing this, why we're getting rid of all this stuff right here, is you'll notice here on this piece, the big piece that surrounds it, it actually has the outline where that stuff goes. So after you cut this out of the paper, you can actually cut this out as well, and that'll leave you a big open spot. So when you go to trace onto the foam, as you're tracing the outline of this piece, you can also trace this line here on the inside and cut it with a knife. And then all you have to do is take that piece after you've cut it and just push it down, so that way you get this effect here, this like pushed in look. And I say that there's a couple ways you can do it, because you'll notice that there is like just a slight little angle in, and then it's there. Depending on how accurate you're trying to go for your armor, if this tiny little slope here doesn't really bother you too much, then you can just eliminate it and just have this whole piece right here just sunk in. If you do want that beveled edge look, what you can do is, as you're cutting it out of here, pivot your blade to try to match that angle. It just looks like a straight 45 from where I'm sitting. So put your blade at a 45 angle and cut inward. Like, as you're cutting in, you want your blade to be inward like here, and that'll give you that beveled look. And then you can take that same piece and still push it in and have it set in there. This bar does complicate things a little bit, because obviously it's missing from here. What you could do is you could try to put it in here to match where that would be. Or you can actually just save the piece itself, cut it out separate. You'll notice that it doesn't really touch the walls too much left and right, so you'll have to just kind of add a little bit onto it to make it longer. Like I said, you could put it in here just to give you an idea, and as you're cutting it out with your angle, you can just go straight across and straight across, and then have these two sections be separate. Yeah, this piece does have a lot of like good examples for everything. I like it. So, moving on to the next piece here, we got another big long one. We got a couple angles here. Now this is a good example here. So this angle right here, and by the way, if you want to shift the whole model, as I'm doing it right here, click the middle mouse wheel. I found that one out. So click, and you'll notice that the angle is just, it's there, but it's not a lot. And since it's under 30, I'm just going to leave it. So we're just going to leave that one alone. But down here on this end, he's a little bit more extreme on his angle. Yeah, he's about almost a 45 there. So find him, and we're going to add disjoin. And now he's his own little separate piece. And you'll notice that we got this one here. Ooh, you know, I'm doing the left side. What am I doing? This is all the right side. So actually, since he's the right side and we're doing work on the left side, we're just going to take this whole right side into the trash. Same with you. Sorry, buddy, but into the trash. So we get the left side. That's what we're going to do. A little scat or brain today. All right. So we're going to take this, and this is pretty much set. Yeah. You got a couple lines here, but they're not extreme enough to make a difference. You'll see this if I zoom really far in. There's a little bit of a difference there, but with foam you have a lot of play, a lot of like squishability and expandability. So that's gonna make no difference to what we're doing here. On bigger pieces, I wish I had an example. I could probably make an example real quick. Actually, right here, this guy. This might get you, because this is quite a gap. If I check real quick, yeah, these would join together. So this is a piece right here, though. That gap will probably get you, because there's probably a piece that connects right here and up to here, and it's gonna end here, and you're gonna have a lot of wiggle room. That's what you don't want. You don't want to find pieces with a gap like this, like right here on an outer edge, and all of a sudden it brings your whole piece like an additional 1/4 inch, and then you're struggling to try to push them together because now you have a 1/4 inch longer piece than what's needed. So you want to keep an eye out for these. If there's big gaps like this, this is a tiny one. Like I said, this won't hurt, but if it's any bigger than that, like I'd say to right about there, then that's going to cause you issues, and you'll want to eliminate them either by joining that piece further in, or just separating it on its own. And there's going to be a lot of pieces that don't translate well to foam like that, especially bowl shapes have a hard time. So you really want to catch things that have a big bowl shape. There might be one on here somewhere. Maybe further as we get further in, but I mean, I wouldn't consider this a bowl shape per se, because it's only down on 2 or 3 sides and it's over a bigger gap. It's like those really round pushed in shapes you got to keep an eye out for. All right, so back to our piece over here. So we got that squared away, and then you'll notice on the bottom here there's a little band going around. Like I said, we don't really need these little bands, and a good way to check to see if you're going to need little bands like this is, let's find that little band real quick. Where is he on here? There he is. Oh. Highlighted in red. Good way to check if you're going to need that is if you right click and you go down to here, measure distance between 2 points, and just pick 2 points on here, especially straight across. So we'll go from this edge to here, which is its width. It's 0.17 inches or 4 millimeters. So if you're assembling armor 10 millimeter thick foam, 4 millimeters is about half of that. So you'd have to cut that piece of foam in half, or you're gonna have a little 4 millimeter, little tiny piece that's gonna be hard to work with. Like I said, these bands don't translate well into foam like that. And if this piece already is going to be 10 millimeters thick inward, that's going to take care of this and this little piece. So there's your 0.8 or your 8 millimeter, and you already have like an additional 2 on the backside to play with. So basically what I'm getting at here is these little bands aren't really needed because the thickness of the foam and the edge that you're cutting, because you're running your knife along here, when you cut down through the foam, it's still going to be thick enough to get all the way down and meet up with this piece here. Now, like I said, these do have just the slightest bit of angle on them. So what you could do is you're cutting it out, angle your knife, and cut this way, so that way you get that beveled down look. Hot knives work extremely good for that, because especially a good, really sharp hot knife, because it won't rip the foam so much, and as it cuts through it, it's also cauterizing the foam in a sense. It's burning it, so it's actually keeping everything together still too. So little bands like this, we're just going to toss them out. We actually got one for this side, one for the right side. There should be one for this side, one for the right side. Highlight all those, grab them, and just give them a yeet. Alright, moving on to this piece. Ooh, this could be a good example. So this is sitting up above, so it's got its own little plane basically. But if you look at it, it's kind of weird shaped. So let's go ahead and find it. It's right here. So this has this band going around it, which once again, the foam thickness is probably even smaller than 0.4, I bet you. Yeah, it might be 0.4. Let's check it. Oh, it's 3. So 3 millimeters. So yeah, it's the foam thickness, so definitely not matter too much. What might matter, and like I said, depending on how you want to cut it out, and I'll show you what I do from stuff like this, you'll notice that it also, like up here, kind of gets flatter, and it's to the point where, you know, if you were to just take this whole little band off, then your line's going to be here and your foam's going to be here, so there's going to be a gap in between it, and you kind of don't want that. For stuff like this where it has a little band going around and you kind of want like the plump thickness look, what I can do, or what I normally do, is I'll go to join and I'll individually cut each one of these off, and that whole line going around the whole piece, and I'm going to reattach them where they go on here. And what it effectively does is it, you know, widens the whole piece out, so then you have a bigger piece. So now it's touching up there again, it's touching there, it's touching there. Or it might get you down here a little bit, because now instead of being almost a vertical, it's going to be bulged out a little bit. Like I said, the foam can squish, and it's going to squish in on itself and help you cover any gaps that are going to be hiding there. So that's what I do for those. So we got that one. We'll find his brother right here. Go to the shadow realm, thank you. And we're going to keep you. So moving down, we're going to probably have, oh, there's that one piece we ran into earlier. Hello. Oh, and you're turned sideways from your brother. How dare you. Yeah, so he's got that bit right there. Normally what causes that gap look there is it has just the slightest little bit of like a bump or a curve in it. And yeah, you can kind of see it. Yeah, get in there. Right there. See how it dips? Like this whole piece dips this way and then comes out? And I bet you that's what's causing it. Simple solution to that, just cut it off. And now you have two pieces. So when you go to join them together, it's a lot easier for the foam to just kind of meld right there. And like I said, it's going to give you a little bit of leeway. If you want to put a little bit of like a beveled angle as you're, you know, putting it on there, you can. I usually try to put little bevels everywhere I can, like, you know, cutting it even at a very slight angle before I put them together, just to, you know, give them a little better look. So there's that one. There's his brother. See you later. Moving down, we got this guy here, and he's going to be pretty much similar to this guy here, where we want to have the shape and we want to have all the extra bits going around it to just kind of help, you know, Now right here, actually, let me double check. Yeah, see, he's got something weird going on here. There's this additional piece. And this piece is almost vertical with this one. But, you know what, we're still gonna just find old Pickle Rick here. And we're going to disjoin all the pieces around it and then rejoin them. Control Z is my friend, thank you. Yeah, if you ever misclick a cut, Control Z, it'll save your life. Don't try to rejoin it and have your piece chase you around the room. Cut. Ooh. And as I'm putting this back together, you'll notice that there are the little gaps, especially like that one, that we talked about earlier, where there's that void spacing right here. When you cut this out, what I'll normally do is I'll just go around it, and I'll come in like this, and I won't directly go this way because you're going to end up with an odd angle. I'll just cut it and then just continue it around and then go straight up through. Like, you're basically trying to cut this internal shape but just out more, so it's, you know, it's got the angle, and you want to kind of go up and go angle, come down and then do almost a straight shot. I don't know why these are flared out a little bit longer, probably because there's just a little bit more to drop down. But basically you're just trying to mimic this internal shape just out further on a larger scale. Alright, so Pickle Rick, we're gonna put you here for now. Grab your brother, get out of here. Alright, so moving on, we've got this big band here. Now this is a piece where you could cut it right down the center. You got a nice little central point here. Let me find him on this side. There he is. And you could take your cut tool and you could cut him right down the center. Boom. And you can split it. Like, you take this whole backside and just split it. But since it's a nice uniform piece, and we want to try to save as many seams on foam as possible, we can actually leave it on there and just use the whole big piece itself. Now for big rounded pieces like this, foam can bend like surprisingly easy, but it'll always want to try to spring back. And I don't know if Ranger covered this on his channel. He probably did, because the guy covers a lot of things. You can hit it with a heat gun to hold its shape. Or me, I usually don't use a heat gun. That's just a personal preference. I know a lot of people will. For me, I tend to just avoid heat guns because I've had a couple bad experiences with them. But as you're assembling it, as you add more pieces on, especially this piece here, this will help hold its shape, because it's going to be, yeah, he's actually right above him. He's going to be in that shape, and you won't need to change him that much. And when you attach him to here, as you're attaching him, I usually go from point to point. Like, I'll attach this side, and then I'll attach this side, and then I'll work my way through the center, so that way it rounds this foam piece out. Doesn't have much to do with what we're teaching here today, but it's just something I wanted to throw in there, and why I keep them uniform. Like I said, you could cut right down the center, but we're trying to save looks on seams, so we don't need it. So we'll keep him as a big piece. We'll keep the attachment piece as a big piece as well. And then this guy, I think, is right above him. No, he's below him. Oh, you know what? And that's going to be like 3 millimeters, which this piece will cover the spot there. So into the trash. Alright. And a lot of these pieces in the back here too, they're all going to be pretty much similar. Yep, so big piece, and then this guy. Uniform, big piece. This guy. Same. We got little pieces here. Oh, see, they split that one in half. Actually, where does he go? Oh man, he goes everywhere. Look at him. You know what? We're going to cut him right here. And we're going to double check that piece there. Because this bit is not necessary, because all this foam thickness. And I guess, you know what? It does have a little bit You see, that's where it's getting me. So what you could do, because if you look at it, these are all going to be multiple pieces. Okay, individual. We could try joining them together, but I know what the end result is going to be. So we got him, and I believe him, and him. Now notice that on the 3D model itself, it's got all these little bumps and divots and everything. And that's just from the model itself when it gets taken out of the game, or if it's modeled by... Well, normally if it's modeled by somebody, they check these things. Normally it's when it comes straight out of a game, they're going to have this. Or if you take a file, 3D file, and you remesh it, and you crunch all the vertices and everything like that, the faces down, and you're going to end up with bevels like this, like crazy. And when you translate it over to foam, it's not going to matter because you're never going to see those. Your foam's going to be smoother. If you try to join them in Pepakura Designer here, you'll notice that you can even see it right now, that there's a curve there. So when you join it, like say right in the middle, add those two backwards. When you try to join it right in the middle, you're going to end up with that gap there. And then same thing on this side. You're gonna end up with that little gap at the top here. The bottom, not so much. Actually, I think the bottom goes the reverse, doesn't it? It forms in. Well, maybe not. It's just a very tiny one. But if you're gonna put this piece on up here, this piece or this piece, actually these two pieces I'd probably just leave off, because your foam thickness will almost be those two combined. So what you could do is actually probably get away with having this as one big piece, because now that these gaps are here, and if you're not going to add this piece up here, then these gaps really don't mean nothing because they're not going to be attached. Oh, see, it's reversed. Oh. Well, there we go. Now it's going to be an issue, because now these gaps are down here, and they're not going to coincide if you put this piece in here, and they're going to be wider than this piece down here. It's adding, I should probably figure out the spacing right now. It is adding 0.03 times 2.06, so it's adding half a millimeter. I guess that's not too bad. You probably squish that in a little bit. This would be a judgment call. This is what we're going to call a judgment call on this one. If you wanted to keep all four of these as one big piece, you could. Or you can have them as individual strips. In this case, honestly, I'd probably keep it. The gap distance between down here and what it's going to translate into here can easily be squished in. And so we can keep all four of those together. As for this piece here, we can either make it or not. That was once again a preference. So where did he go? There he is. And I think he has a little bit more attached down. Yeah, we don't need that bit there, so we can get rid of that. We're just focusing on this little bit right here that attaches down here. So now that you have this big piece assembled and it's not four individual, what you could do is you could bevel out, to mimic what this angle would be down to meet up with this piece down here. But you'll also notice that this piece is here too. So this is also going to be in the way. So now you're adding a bigger gap. So in this case, since there's this piece here, and it's decently sized, let's check the size on it. I have a feeling it's going to be either 4 or 5 mil. It's 5 mil, so it's exactly half. So we can make that into a piece, and it's going to be hard to cut on foam because it's going to be so tiny, and it's going to be harder to bevel it if you choose to. I'd honestly bevel this at a 45, and then that way... Yeah, it's about 45. I'd bevel this at a 45, so that way this piece doesn't need to be cut in at a bevel. Because now you're working on a tiny little piece. You're trying to get your hot knife on it, or wherever you don't use a box cutter for trying to cut that, because that would be bad. But yeah, you'll get your hot knife in there and you might burn yourself. So we'll keep that piece, and then what we'll do is we'll find his brother, since it's uniform on both sides and it's nice and round. Take it, we'll make the copy, and then we'll join them together. Boom, now it's one solid piece. And then we just get rid of the excess here. Yeah, that's about the thickness I'd work with, is 5 mil, like half the foam's thickness. Anything smaller than that, and you're really cutting it close. And if you slip with the knife and you go straight across it, next thing you know, you've just cut the piece in half. Or cut half your finger off, one of the two. So this little piece here, we can just get rid of him. He's going to be probably closer to 2, 3. It's got a little bit of a gap distance. In this case, you can do one of two things. You can either try to make this piece a little bit bigger on this bottom edge. Just make it as you're cutting it out on the paper, and then just cut it out just to be a little bit bigger. Or if you don't want to play that game, you can take this piece and cut off the little pieces here. This should attach here, and then just chop it there, and just join there, and there. And what you've essentially done is made this piece as big as that distance now. So now it'll definitely make that distance. And there we go. And then we get rid of these little wings here. Well, I'm having wings later tonight too. Oh, I'm making myself hungry. Take these, and we're just going to toss them. I need a better mouse, apparently, because my track wheel is getting caught in the button. We're going to toss them up there. And now we're just down to a couple more pieces left here, honestly. We got this piece here, which he is solid by himself, so he gets to stay. Brother goes away. This piece here is also solid. It's got a tiny little angle there, but it's not going to be that much of an issue. So he stays, he goes. And we'll just do a couple more cleanup pieces here. We got the top bit, which we have not gotten to yet. And like I said, I'm very sporadic when I'm unfolding things. I'll either work on the model or I'll work on what I see over here on the page. I have no rhyme or reason. Here you can see that is a very steep angle there. So we're going to want to cut that piece off. Both sides. Boom, boom. That leaves us the middle piece here, which is a nice flat piece, and then one off each side. This is the right side. Left Twix only in this household, so there we go. Left side stays. And then same thing with this big piece up here. And actually, he's got some wings coming off of him. There we go, talking about wings again. And they have a very sharp angle down here at the bottom. So we're going to cut both those off. Boom. And I believe that's the right side, right? Yep, so I don't need to worry about that. And then boom. Boom. This is the left side. So the big centerpiece stays. Left and left. Let's double check that angle. But yeah, it's a little bit extreme. Zoom in on that. There we go. Yeah, I wouldn't go any more than that. If it was less, I'd keep it on, but since it's right there, we're gonna keep it separate. And then off he goes. This here. Just looking over here because this guy has these two little sliver pieces, and I bet you they are not very helpful. Yeah, you got that one there, which that foam thickness is easily going to translate. Same with that piece. So off you go. Ooh, come on. Come on. This piece here. Yep, we don't need him. He's a little sliver. And these should be their brothers on the other side. It's very hard. It's very hard to click when you're so zoomed out. And I don't know why I torture myself so much. There we go. These little pieces, I bet you they're just cut-offs. Also, if you're, I highlighted them, I'm looking around, and I don't really see them. You could always try double-clicking on the actual 2D side. It'll take you kind of where it goes. I see it's right there. But as you're rotating the model around a lot, the camera tries to center itself. And with a small piece like this, it's going to center itself decent. On something like a torso as it spins around, you might click on a piece that's on the front, double click it, and it's going to rotate you to the back for some reason and have you try to see right through the model, be like, see, it's right here, and you just won't see it. So highlight it, or if you double click it, especially like I said, when you double click it over here, it adds a nice big red mark, like a deeper red on top of the red that's already shown whenever you just single click it. So double clicking it adds a brighter red so you can see the piece better. Alright, we got that piece. This guy here, I believe, is up top. Yep. So the middle part can stay, and then these outer pieces can go. And they've got a bevel to them. Check their size, but I bet you they're going to be small. Oh, they're 5. So if you wanted to leave them on, you could. And that way you have a 5 millimeter strip going down through there. Or you can just take these pieces and as you cut them out, bevel them outward. And this is another reason why I always work with the model on the computer right in front of me. So that way as I'm like cutting out pieces and I'm getting ready to trace them on the foam and cut them out, I can look at each individual piece and be like, okay, so when I trace this on the foam, I want to leave this side and this side open a bit because I'm going to have to bevel and I don't want it to cut into another piece I'm going to be putting right next to it. And that's another reason why another little tidbit for me is when I'm tracing onto foam, I don't try to put pieces like right next to each other for that specific reason, because you're just going to run into issues when you're cutting things out. And I've had a couple mishaps where I traced too close and then next thing you know, I'm destroying 2 pieces at once instead of just 1. So for me personally, I'd get rid of this and just bevel these cuts out or expand this piece, or even maybe even a better option, I'd do this, this, and this. Ooh, click it, there you go. Cut these off and then just expand this bottom piece out wider. And that way it's going to add a little extra, but like I say, you just mush it around on each side and that way it'll fit in there. Like I said, you have plenty of playroom with foam. With Pepakura, you have no playroom. You have to be precise. But with foam, you can get away with so much more. And if you mess up, you just take the piece you cut out, you can say, okay, and you just cut another foam piece out and you try it again. You don't have to print out a whole nother piece and then try to get it reassembled on paper. Alright, so looking through here, we've done all that. Up at the top, we got this piece here, which, ooh, I don't know where you are. Front? Yep, front. Alright, so we don't need the little band going around. So we can get rid of him. And then just looking at this piece here, we got a small piece, and then this, and then this. The top part being a steep angle, and then the bottom half not so steep, so we want to cut that little top piece off. There, have him separate, and he's going to be a little bugger, isn't he? 'Cause he's going to be tiny, and there's not much gap there too, so if you just want to expand him out just a little bit when you trace him, or if you just want to try to like pull him out as you're assembling them. So there's that piece there. We did not touch him. This would be a personal preference piece. If you're going to add him on, he is pretty much already combined. So cut there. Oop, see, now the models are moving in on themselves. It's a, you notice it as you like cut and reassemble pieces, the actual, when you cut it, go back, as you cut it, the whole piece is like shift apart, and that can get real annoying when you're trying to cut out like little like diamond patterns that are on top of each other. I've been doing it for years, so it doesn't really bother me. I can see where each line, like even this kind of looks kind of confusing, but I can see where it's going to attach to on each side. And that's another little hint that I can tell you, is that when you're trying to, say you want to attach to whatever goes here, well, it's right there, it'll actually draw a line on the 2D side to show you where that piece is. So let's say, let's go up here and be like, oh, well, I don't know what attaches here. Well, it's going to draw a line, and it's going to find that piece wherever it may be on the file. And it's way up there at the top left. So that tells you if you're trying to find the piece you're looking for that attaches to it and you don't know where it is, it'll go there. And even if you're like, oh, well, I'm not using that piece, I'm throwing it out. All right, where does that piece then lead to? There. Where does that piece then lead to? Oh, I had it down there. It goes down to here. Alright, so we got that piece. Where are you? I'm guessing you're right there. And that piece covers that edge, that piece covers that edge, and this piece covers this edge, so we don't really need it. Like I said, that'll be just the foam thickness playing its part. So basically, as you have this part laying here, like this is the top of the foam, the smooth part. This will be the edge of the foam where you ran your knife to cut it, and then you'll just take this piece and butt it up against that edge and glue it or paste it on right there. And you can go back and measure to see exactly like how far down it is. But on all that, it's just eyeball guessing. Like that would be probably almost the full thickness of the foam. Like the bottom edge, I'd be attaching this piece onto like, you know, maybe like 1 or 2 millimeters up onto the foam itself, and just following that contour on the edge of this piece right here. Like I said, it saves you a ton of paper and cutting out and assembling. And this is junk, I remember that from earlier. And I think we're down. Yep, we just got these 2 pieces left here. This guy, which that is a personal preference. If you want to add this and this. And then same thing with this piece, which I already threw out. So if you wanted to add these on, so this is where your arm's going to go. And the foam itself is going to be thick to about here. So all you're really adding on is like an additional little inch or so, or you're trying to make it look smoother, I guess, if you want to add this piece in. So, you know, it kind of looks like it rolls and then goes to your arm. Like I said, personal preference. For me, I wouldn't really bother with it. It's just, you know, nobody's going to be looking at the back edge of your arm so much. But if you're priding yourself and you're trying to go for like the best looking piece, then yeah, you might want to add it. Like I said, this is such a low poly file. You're not going to be, I don't think you really win too many awards with this, I'm sorry, but unless you add a lot to it. But this is a little rough of a file. But yeah, there we go. Now we've just converted 6 pages down into essentially 3 if I were to organize this. You know, let's go ahead and organize it real quick. I got time. So for organization, it's like Pepakura. If you're trying to just do it for yourself, if you're pretty sure you're not going to be sharing these files anywhere, then I usually just toss pieces wherever I can. I try to make, you know, try to fit as many as I can onto one page just through organization, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. If you're planning on unfolding stuff and giving it out or letting other people mess with it, you might want to be a little bit more tidy, you know, focus on keeping all this like all these pieces, like the central pieces or the bigger pieces together, or maybe having like the top edge pieces all on one page, and then like the next section all on another page, the next section all on another page, you know, trying to make it tidy. But for the most part, when I'm just building it for myself, I usually just try to cram as many as I can onto one page without touching each other. And if you are afraid they're touching each other, there actually is a, I believe, not check course, I believe it's up here in the 2D menu. You can actually, check overlapping parts, and that'll let you know where if parts are crossing the line on the page or if parts are crossing each other on the page. Like, it'll let you know if lines are touching, essentially, on parts they're not supposed to. But even still, like, you can get super duper close to that thing ever going off. Oop. But I still wouldn't trust, you know, I mean, that's just small, and your knife blade's gonna probably tear into one of these two. And it's gonna make life harder, so try to keep them spaced out a little bit. And you don't have to be, you know, you want to try to save as much paper as possible, but you don't have to be super stingy. But I think we can still get down to 3 pages on this. Let's see. Like I said, no rhyme or reason. I'm just grabbing things and throwing them everywhere. Where did you come from? Oh, yeah, we don't need you. Why are you still here? Go home. Can we get it down to 2 pages? Is that a thing? Sometimes I question myself. Oh, no, we're not going to get down to 2. I forgot about him down there. Beefcake stroganoff down there. Rotate. Just double check him. Yeah, those angles are fine. Curve up just a bit, but foam is flexible. You can't get a perfect 90-degree bend on foam, but you get darn close to it, especially if you apply heat. If you add a bevel cut and then apply heat, you probably get a straight 90, but then you're weakening its core, because every time you cut it from the back, you're cutting away a section of it. You're cutting away a part of its like rigidness, and you don't want to do that too much, or else you're going to end up with tearing issues. Yeah, we're probably going to have to reduce it down to 3 pages just to be safe. You could probably fiddle around with this a little bit more if you wanted to cram it onto 2. And there are times where I'll sit there for an extra hour just trying to mush everything in. I'm like, why am I doing this? It's just one more page, man. Just print out an additional page. But hey, maybe you don't have. Maybe you only have 2 pages. Maybe Walmart's closed for the night. Staples, wherever you get your paper from. I've been recently disappointed with Walmart's selection. They don't have white 65-pound cardstock anymore, and it disappoints me. That was my go-to place. Now I have to go to Staples on the other side of town. Who wants to do that? And since we're only on the last 2 pieces here, and as the pages shrink, get a little, you know, even if you want to, like, now that you're using 3 pages, you can move some of these over just to save yourself from trying to struggle and get them all crammed into one space. But for the most part, that's what I do. And there we have it. And at the end too, if you want to check to make sure that you don't have any straggler pieces sitting on the, you know, the paper that you're going to cut out and trace and be like, where does this go? I don't remember this one. You can select highlight everything like we did at the start, and it should only be things on the left hand side or straight down the middle. And it kind of looks like there's stuff on the right, but actually, oh, you know what? He is. Where did you come from? Oh, see, there's your brother right there. See, we don't need you. That's a good way to save yourself some extra cutting and frustration. Same thing with you. How'd you get here? Oh, you figured I would have saw this earlier. But hey, I'm just a human. And yeah, everything's uniform. All the pieces on the left are there. All the pieces on the right are in the trash. You can also do the reverse too if you really wanted to, but it will highlight stuff on the left side that you'd be like, oh, I forgot, but you're throwing out because you really don't need these additional pieces here. So yeah, that is a breakdown of how I do things, converting them from a already existing Pepakura file into a foam file for cutting and assembling. So I hope this has been helpful. Like I said, I want to do another video, and I might just shoot it here right after this one, of breaking down a straight 3D model that's either OBJ or STL, starting from that point and breaking it down into foam, which then can also be translated into Pepakura if you want as well, depending on what you want to do. I'm assuming if you're here to learn how to change Pepakura into foam, you're going to be working with foam more than you will Pepakura. But yeah, that'll be for another video down the road. So thank you guys. If you have any tips or anything, or if you need additional help, leave a comment down in the comment section. I'm always checking YouTube, so I'll be able to see anything that you suggest or if you need help with. If you want me to shoot more videos like this in the future, like I said, I'm going to be doing the one for the 3D files here soon. But if you want to see me, like, maybe the 3D model doesn't work at all, it doesn't load into Pepakura Designer, it keeps crashing it. If you want me to shoot a video on how to fix that, like how I go through the remeshing problems, or taking it into Blender and deleting parts to make it simpler, things like that, because a lot of these ones that you find that are just straight Pepakura files are already set to go. They've already been through that process, they've been broken down, or if they needed to be reduced, they have been already, because they're already working in Pepakura Designer. With a lot of 3D models, you run into issues where it'll crash the program, or it just won't translate right. But we'll dive into that video. But I don't think I'm going to shoot one specifically on how I do that, how I break it down, how I remesh it, how I delete things, everything like that. So if you want to see videos of that caliber, let me know. If you want me to go into further detail of foam assembly, let me know. But like I said, you can go check out Ranger. He's been doing an awesome job at that. If you want more tips on how to use Pepakura Designer, like I said, I mentioned Spacemeat earlier. He has a lot of breakdowns. But if you want me to make my own breakdown of that too, I could. Been using the program for over 8 years now. I'm pretty sure I'm really capable, even though I'm still learning things. I learned something new like a month ago. Didn't know the program ever had it. So it'll be a learning process for both of us. I don't know what half these buttons up here do. I've never used them. One thing I forgot to mention as you're unfolding all this, if you guys actually don't own a license to Pepakura Designer 4, you will not be able to save your progress. So I highly recommend that if you're getting into cosplay, maybe you don't want to spend the money right away. You can always unfold your stuff, but then you're gonna have to leave your computer and the program up because you will not be able to save it. But if you're already big into cosplay, you're just getting into armor building, like this is a new venture for you, then you'll want to purchase, a key from Tamasoft. I believe it's $40 still. It's a little pricey, but for the 8 years that I've been using it, I've enjoyed it. I've always had a key for it just because I wanted to save my own progress and everything, especially if you've never seen any of my builds before, like the Ghost or Gypsy Danger, where they are massive things and I need to save all the files for. I unfolded a Bugatti Veyron that's like 165 pages, and to redo it again if my computer shut off to a power failure, I'd cry. I'd probably cry. So instead, I gotta say, just buy the key, purchase the program, especially if you're set on getting into this. But this is a video to teach you how to do that. You can always reach out to somebody to have it unfolded for you. But like I said, this video is to teach you how to do it yourself. I've seen a lot of people, they come forward and they're like, hey, I see the pep. Where's the foam file? Hey, where's the foam file? This video is to help you guys learn. Like, I want to see you guys learn. I want to see you guys be able to do this on your own, to not have to rely on other people to always be unfolding your files. You can do it yourself. Armorsmith, like I said, I have not played with it. I know it has unfolding capabilities. I've seen other 4/5 members play around with it. So I know that also has a price tag. Last I knew, I think it was 25. I could be wrong. Might even be up to 30. Could be even lower. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't bought it yet. I want to play around with it. Maybe shoot a video like this on it in the future. All right, but thank you so much for watching the video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that garbage. But hey, thank you. Hope this helps you in your cosplaying adventures. Thank you so much.